The first-class cabin smelled faintly of fresh coffee and polished leather, a sanctuary for the privileged. But that sanctuary was about to crack. "Excuse me, young ladies, you need to move immediately to the coach section." A sharp voice sliced through the soft hum of the plane. The words came from Veronica Miles, a senior flight attendant with a reputation for strict enforcement. But underneath, a streak of bias often tinted her authority. Seated side by side in 1A and 1B were 12-year-old twins, Nia and Naomi Carter. Their matching lavender cardigans and crisp white sneakers reflected the care their parents instilled in them, while their natural curls, tied back with tiny bows, shimmered in the overhead lights. Tablets rested lightly in their laps, their fingers pausing mid-game as the demand hit. Welcome to a place where stories of courage, resilience, and justice come alive. If it's your first time here, you're in the right spot. Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our inspiring tales. Comment your city and the time where you are. Let's see how far our community reaches. The twins' faces mirrored pure disbelief. Their first-class tickets had been booked weeks prior, confirmed and double-checked. Boarding had been smooth, polite greetings exchanged, seats claimed without issue. Yet here they were, being told they didn't belong. "Excuse me," Nia began, keeping her voice calm and respectful. "We have our boarding passes. These are our seats." She extended the passes, straight and deliberate, like a diplomat presenting credentials. Veronica's eyes narrowed, a sneer tugging at her lips. "I don't need to see papers. We've received complaints about a disturbance. You two clearly belong elsewhere." Her tone dripped condescension, as if 12-year-old girls couldn't comprehend decorum. Or perhaps as if she didn't care whether they could. Naomi's gaze flickered to the nearby passengers, their expressions a mixture of confusion and concern. A man in 2C, gray-haired with reading glasses perched on his nose, shook his head. "What disturbance?" he called, his voice calm but firm. "They've barely boarded, and they haven't made a sound." A woman in 3D, typing on a sleek laptop, nodded. "Exactly. I've been watching the cabin since takeoff prep. No issues at all. These girls are quiet and polite." Veronica's jaw tightened. She'd faced questions before, but never with this kind of pushback from adults she assumed would defer. "I'm responsible for comfort in first class. These girls are causing it," she spat, her words sharp and unyielding. Nia exhaled slowly, recalling her father's lessons. "Ma'am, our father said we should respect airline staff, but also understand our rights as passengers. If there's a problem, we request documentation and a conversation with the pilot." The flight attendant's laugh was bitter. "Your father? And what expertise does he have in airline protocols?" "Very relevant expertise," Naomi answered steadily, her small hands gripping her tablet. "He works in aviation. He teaches crew standards and safety. He can verify our rights if there's an issue." Veronica's eyes narrowed further, a storm brewing behind her professional mask. She'd underestimated these girls, assuming compliance. She didn't expect knowledge or poise, and certainly not witnesses backing them. Passengers began discreetly filming. A mother in 4A quietly raised her phone. A tech blogger in 5B went live, noting the growing tension. Whispers spread across the cabin like wildfire. "Non-compliant passengers," Veronica barked, leaning slightly forward. "Move now, or I will have the pilot intervene." The twins shared a brief look, understanding that this confrontation was no longer about seats. It was about bias, authority, and fairness. "Miss," Nia said, her voice unwavering, "we've done nothing wrong. If this is about a complaint, we need to see it. Otherwise, we remain in our paid seats." Naomi added, softer but firm, "And we'd like to speak with the pilot before any forced relocation." "It's our right." The cabin held its breath. Veronica's ego recoiled at such audacity from children, especially black children, in the space she'd long considered her domain. "You think knowing regulations makes you clever?" she hissed. "I've flown longer than you've lived. You will comply." "Ma'am," the older passenger in 2C interrupted gently, "they've complied with all rules. This is clearly targeting based on, well, appearances. They're not causing disruption." Whispers turned into audible murmurs of agreement. More passengers started recording. A few called friends, posting clips on social media. The unfolding scene became not just an altercation over seats, but a case of unfair treatment witnessed in real time. Naomi pulled a slim device from her backpack, a gift from their father for safe travels. "If necessary," she said quietly, "we can contact our dad." Veronica scoffed, the condescension in her voice as thick as the tension in the air. "Oh, calling your dad? How quaint. Who does he think he is?" Naya's eyes flashed with a mixture of fear and courage. "He leads this airline," she whispered to her sister, barely audible over the ambient chatter. Veronica's face twisted into disbelief and mockery. "Leads? Like in customer service? Some junior manager?" Her laughter was hollow. She had no idea the truth, no inkling that the authority she'd mocked would arrive in minutes. Not just to defend policy, but to confront the blatant bias she had displayed. The twins exhaled silently, adrenaline coursing, hearts steadying in the twin synchronicity that had carried them through years of navigating the world as young black girls in spaces where they were underestimated. Every passenger watching now sensed the gravity, some already whispering, "She picked the wrong kids this time." The plane's cabin lights reflected off polished tray tables and glimmered in the twins' eyes. For Veronica, the illusion of control remained, but only just. For Nia and Naomi, the lesson was clear. Sometimes justice requires standing firm, even when the odds seem impossible. As Nia pressed the numbers on the phone, connecting directly to her father, the cabin seemed to lean in collectively. Cameras captured poised youth preparing to challenge unfair authority. What unfolded next would shatter assumptions and rewrite the power dynamics in that first-class aisle forever. Veronica Miles paced the aisle with stiff, clipped steps, her polished shoes clicking sharply on the cabin floor. Her uniform was immaculate, badge gleaming, authority worn like armor. But inside, panic edged her precision. She had faced difficult passengers before, but never children who wielded knowledge like weapons and calm like a shield. "You two need to move now," Veronica barked again, voice rising. "Complaints demand action. This is procedure, not preference." Nia and Naomi exchanged a glance, twin telepathy linking determination with resolve. Naomi's fingers hovered over her tablet, ready to record if necessary, while Nia's hand rested on the device they had prepared for emergencies. A direct line to the one person who could enforce fairness instantly, their father. A hush fell over first class. Passengers paused, some mid-sip, others with devices suspended in the air, sensing the unfolding spectacle of adult bias confronted by precocious, composed youth. "I'm sorry, miss," Nia began, carefully measured, "but can you provide the name of the complainant and the details of the issue, and any documentation required for seat relocation, per airline and FAA rules?" The cabin collectively held its breath. The question was precise, legalistic, and delivered with a confidence no 12-year-old normally possessed. Veronica's face tightened, a flicker of alarm betraying her usual bravado. "Documents aren't necessary for passengers," she snapped, her voice shaking, despite attempts at control. "I am lead attendant. I make decisions for comfort, and that's final." A passenger in 2B, a retired airline pilot, raised a brow. "Actually, ma'am, FAA Part 121 requires proper documentation for seat changes under claims of disturbance or relocation. You need to provide specifics." Veronica's jaw twitched. This was a new variable. Adult professionals citing rules. Her authority questioned at every turn. Her decades of intimidation were unraveling under scrutiny from both passengers and the very children she assumed would comply silently. "I don't need to provide documents to children," she snapped. "They're disrupting the cabin and refusing to move." "They've done nothing wrong," the retired pilot countered firmly. "Not a sound, not a disturbance. Just polite young flyers following instructions." More passengers raised devices, filming and whispering. A blogger in 4C went live, narrating to a growing audience. "This is unbelievable. 12-year-olds threatened over nothing. Adult bias in plain sight. Watch closely." Within seconds, dozens of notifications pinged across social media platforms. The twins felt the energy shift in the cabin. Support was growing. Adults who had initially hesitated to intervene now spoke up, their voices calm but assertive. "Miss Miles," the woman in 3D said, her tone clipped. "I'm a discrimination law specialist. What you're doing here is classic targeting of children over appearances. This is not a disruption, it's bias." Veronica's hands tightened into fists. She could feel her control slipping, the carefully constructed persona of authority cracking under observation. She raised her voice, trying to regain command. "Enough! I have the right to manage comfort in first class. Move now, or the pilot decides." Gasps ran through the cabin. Threatening 12-year-olds? The words carried an unspeakable weight, leaving a ripple of anger and disbelief among passengers. Even the silent ones felt compelled to record and share what they were witnessing. Amid the tension, Naomi spoke up, her voice steady but soft. "We've done nothing wrong. We're heading to New York, not causing trouble. If you flag us as a security risk without cause, we request the pilot's review and full records." Veronica's eyes widened as the twins' precise terminology revealed an intimate understanding of airline procedure. She was facing passengers who were no longer silent witnesses, plus children who knew their rights, and the potential consequences of her actions. Nia gently pulled out her phone, the device their father had insisted they carry for emergencies. Fingers flying, she initiated the call that could upend Veronica's false authority in an instant. Veronica noticed, scoffing. "Calling your dad? He won't care about a seat dispute." Her tone was laced with derision, masking the first real crack of fear. "Actually," Nia said, eyes fixed on the cabin ahead, "he leads this airline." The words were subtle but devastating, carrying more weight than Veronica could comprehend. The murmurs grew louder. Passengers who had been quietly filming now whispered excitedly. A mother near the front leaned toward the twins. "Did she just say who their father is?" Veronica's stomach churned. She realized too late that this was no ordinary passenger complaint. She had targeted children, confident in their assumed passivity, and now those assumptions were about to blow up in her face. "Fine," she snapped, louder now, voice cracking. "Play the experts with rights and FAA rules. Move willingly or the pilot intervenes." Nia's finger hovered over the call button, twin resolve mirrored in Naomi's steady gaze. "It's time," Naomi whispered. "Dad will fix this." The cabin held its collective breath as the twins' small hands dialed into power. Within seconds, the quiet authority of a CEO would enter the scene, and the scales of justice would shift. Passengers whispered among themselves, stunned at the unfolding display. A flight attendant's decades of authority challenged by 12-year-olds, adults rallying in support, and the promise of accountability in real time. Veronica clenched her teeth, sensing the storm she had never anticipated. Every device in the cabin, every phone camera, every eye fixed on her, bore witness to the unraveling of her authority. The call connected, and the voice on the other end was calm, warm, and commanding. "Hello, Nia? Naomi? Everything all right?" The twins exhaled, knowing that the moment for fairness and truth had arrived. "Dad," Nia said, steady and clear, "your attendant is forcing us to move to coach over a false claim. She's threatening removal, ignoring regulations, and targeting us unfairly. Passengers are watching. We need help." Veronica froze as the weight of the words sank in. Not just any parent, but the airline CEO. Her carefully cultivated control, built over 20 years, now faced the ultimate authority, someone who could and would hold her accountable for every biased act. And in that moment, the cabin knew. Nothing would ever be the same. The confrontation that began as a seat dispute had become a historic reckoning, witnessed by dozens of passengers and broadcast to thousands online, setting the stage for a reveal that would upend the flight attendant's career and expose the depth of her bias. The phone connected, a single ring stretching long in the quiet tension of the first-class cabin. Nia held it with calm hands, Naomi by her side, the twins' small frames radiating a mixture of fearlessness and composure. Hello, girls. Is everything all right up there? The voice was warm, familiar, and carried the authority of someone used to command without needing to assert it harshly. Dad, Nia began, steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Your flight attendant is forcing us to move to coach over a false claim. She says we're causing a disturbance, but passengers are saying otherwise. She threatened removal, ignored FAA regulations, and is treating us unfairly. A hush fell over the cabin as passengers leaned in, recognizing the seriousness of the statement. Phones tilted subtly, capturing the twins' voices, the tension, and the sudden shift from minor incident to corporate-level intervention. Your attendant's name? Dr. Elijah Carter, CEO of the airline, asked calmly, tone measured but icy in authority. Veronica Miles, Nia answered, her voice unwavering. Silence followed. Veronica froze, realizing the small, poised girl on the phone held the power to end her career instantly. Her face paled as the weight of the moment hit. 20 years of authority and unchecked bias were about to collide with the very apex of airline power, and she had underestimated the wrong family. Miss Miles, Dr. Carter's voice now filled the cabin through Nia's phone, steady but piercing. I've been made aware of your treatment of my daughters. Threatening to remove them from first class for alleged disturbances is not only false, it violates company policies on equality and respect. Explain yourself. The flight attendant's mouth opened, a fumbling attempt at defense. Sir, I was following protocol, comfort reports, regulations, procedures. Protocol? Dr. Carter's voice cut through, sharper now, carrying decades of executive precision. You fabricated complaints. There were no disturbances. Passengers observed everything. Cameras are recording. Witnesses have corroborated the harassment. Your protocol is a veil for discrimination, plain and simple. The cabin collectively exhaled, tension mingling with awe. Passengers had witnessed the unfolding bias, and now the head of the airline was confirming it, addressing the offender in real time. I didn't, Veronica faltered, eyes darting to the adults documenting her every misstep, realizing no excuse could survive the scrutiny. Dr. Carter's tone remained controlled but unyielding. Your actions have endangered not just my daughters, but the integrity of our service. We do not tolerate targeting passengers based on race, age, or appearance. Your behavior is not just unethical, it is a violation of federal and company regulations. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending full investigation. Security will escort you off this flight. The words landed like a thunderclap. Veronica's body froze, the weight of her 20-year career collapsing around her. For the first time, authority she once wielded with impunity was stripped away before her eyes, executed calmly but decisively by the very person she had mocked. The twins exchanged a glance, a mix of relief and quiet pride. Their father's intervention had not only validated their rights, but also shielded them from the consequences of someone else's prejudice. The cabin, meanwhile, erupted in subtle applause and murmurs, smartphones capturing every second. Passengers who had filmed the confrontation now shared it widely, aware they were witnessing an unprecedented moment of accountability. A mother in 4B whispered, I've never seen justice happen so fast. A businessman in 3C shook his head, saying, that was long overdue. Dr. Carter's voice softened as he addressed his daughters directly. Nia, Naomi, are you all right? Did the situation escalate beyond what you could manage? Nia shook her head, holding the phone tightly. We're fine, Dad. Passengers have been kind. Everyone's watching, making sure she doesn't escalate further. I'm proud of how you handled it, he said, tone warm. Calm, polite, knowing your rights, and documenting everything. That's exactly how we respond to unfair treatment. Naomi added softly, we were scared for a moment, but we remembered your lessons. Stay composed, protect yourself, and call for help when needed. Dr. Carter nodded, speaking to the cabin now. Everyone here has seen firsthand what happens when authority is misused. Miss Miles has violated both our policies and federal guidelines, and immediate action is required to protect passengers and uphold fairness. We take these matters seriously, and incidents like this will never go unaddressed. The atmosphere shifted. Where tension had been palpable moments ago, there was now a sense of relief and vindication. Passengers who had felt powerless witnessing bias now saw real accountability enacted live, and the twins, once targets of unfair treatment, emerged as exemplars of poise, knowledge, and courage. Veronica's lips trembled as she was escorted toward the exit by security personnel called aboard. Cameras captured her retreat, the narrative of long-held prejudice unspooling before the eyes of the witnesses she had once assumed were powerless. As she left, Dr. Carter continued, addressing both the cabin and the twins. We will be reviewing training and procedures across all crews to ensure incidents like this never happen again. Policies will be reinforced, accountability will be enforced, and our commitment to equality is non-negotiable. Today, my daughters taught us all an important lesson about fairness, courage, and standing up against bias. Passengers murmured, some clapping softly, others raising their phones for final shots. The twins' bravery had become a living case study in confronting prejudice, showing that knowledge, composure, and courage could challenge systemic inequities, even in the sky. Nia and Naomi's relief was palpable. Their father had intervened, yes, but their preparedness, awareness, and adherence to protocol had created the conditions for accountability. Every passenger who had witnessed the unfolding events knew they had just seen history, the swift dismantling of decades of unchecked authority and bias in a single aisle. Dr. Carter's final words to the twins were tender yet firm. Remember this moment. What you did here, standing up respectfully, calmly, and wisely, shows how change happens. Not through anger, not through fear, but through knowledge, courage, and persistence. I'm proud of you both. The cabin echoed with a collective sense of justice fulfilled. Cameras, whispers, and social media posts captured the fall of a career built on assumptions and bias, contrasted with the rise of two young girls' dignity and resilience. The flight, once ordinary, had become a historic lesson in accountability, fairness, and the power of standing up for what's right. Veronica's departure was final. The aisle cleared, leaving the twins safe and validated, the cabin buzzing with passengers' admiration and relief. Dr. Carter stayed on the call until the girls felt reassured, until every witness understood that fairness and justice had won, and bias, however long entrenched, had been confronted decisively. The cabin, once tense and hostile, now felt like a sanctuary of vindication. The echoes of Veronica Miles's departure lingered, a reminder that unchecked bias, no matter how long tolerated, had limits when faced with truth, courage, and authority. Passengers murmured among themselves, some still holding phones aloft to capture the final moments of accountability. A retired teacher in 2A shook his head, voice low but firm. I've witnessed decades of injustice in my classroom, but nothing like this. Children empowered to confront systemic bias and succeed. Remarkable. The mother in 4C, who had initially filmed the confrontation for her own peace of mind, whispered to her daughter, remember, honey, justice isn't always swift, but standing up matters. These girls proved it. Nia and Naomi, seated quietly now, exhaled in relief. The adrenaline of confrontation had ebbed, leaving pride and cautious joy. Their father's intervention had ensured their safety, but it was their own composure and knowledge that had created the conditions for change. Dr. Elijah Carter, still on the line, addressed the twins in the cabin with measured authority. Passengers, thank you for observing and documenting this situation responsibly. Your vigilance helped ensure accountability. Rest assured, comprehensive actions will be taken to prevent this from ever happening again. The airline immediately implemented several corrective measures. Veronica Miles's employment was terminated on the spot. Her pattern of bias, long suspected but never fully documented, now publicly exposed. Federal and internal investigations were launched, analyzing 20 years of service records, complaint histories, and previous instances of disproportionate targeting of passengers based on race or appearance. Passengers began exchanging information, noting how documentation and witness accounts had transformed a micro-level conflict into a systemic review. The blogger who had gone live now had tens of thousands of views on a post titled, "12-Year-Old Girls Stand Against Bias. Airline CEO Intervenes." Airline executives issued formal apologies not only to the twins, but to all passengers affected by similar incidents in the past. Mandatory anti-bias and child rights training were implemented across all crews, ensuring that no employee could repeat such targeted harassment without swift accountability. Policies were reviewed and updated to require transparent documentation for any seat relocations, particularly involving minors. In the cabin, whispers turned to conversations, and conversations to reflections. Adults discussed how they had often stayed silent when witnessing microaggressions or unfair treatment, realizing that public accountability, documented, recorded, and shared, was a powerful tool for change. A passenger in 3B, a human resources consultant, observed thoughtfully, "This is a lesson for all of us. Bias persists because people assume compliance. When individuals, even children, understand their rights and assert them responsibly, the balance of power shifts." The twins reflected privately, their bond strengthened by the ordeal. Nia spoke softly. "I was scared at first, but remembering Dad's lessons helped. We stayed calm, asked for documentation, and didn't let fear control us." Naomi nodded, holding her tablet like a talisman. "It wasn't just about seats. It was about respect, fairness, and knowing our rights. People watching, adults supporting. It made all the difference." As the plane prepared to land in New York, Dr. Carter coordinated with flight operations to ensure the twins' smooth transition to private transport, minimizing further exposure to scrutiny or potential harassment. Upon arrival, they were greeted with warmth and relief, enveloped in their father's embrace. "Today you taught everyone watching a lesson in courage and dignity," he said, holding them close. "Not all fights are visible, and not all justice is immediate, but standing for what's right matters. You two did that brilliantly." The twins' experience quickly became a case study for airlines, HR specialists, and child advocacy organizations. News outlets covered the incident extensively, highlighting the combination of youth courage, parental guidance, and passenger intervention that culminated in decisive accountability. Social media was flooded with messages praising the twins' bravery, the passenger support, and the CEO's swift action. Within weeks, the airline instituted a full review of customer service protocols, bias reporting channels, and child protection policies. Training videos featured the twins' story, with their consent, as a benchmark for proper handling of minors, conflict resolution, and legal compliance. Industry-wide, flight attendants and airline staff were reminded that authority carried responsibility, and that unchecked bias had consequences. For Nia and Naomi, life returned to normal rhythms, though forever marked by the extraordinary event. School friends gathered around, eager to hear the story firsthand. Teachers lauded their poise, and local news outlets featured interviews emphasizing awareness, knowledge, and resilience as tools for combating discrimination. The twins' parents reflected privately on the ordeal, grateful their daughters had internalized the principles of justice, respect, and courage. "This world can be unfair," their father said, "but standing up, armed with knowledge and composure, allows even young people to reshape outcomes." Passengers who had witnessed the events often shared updates with one another, reflecting on the collective power of vigilance. A retired teacher noted, "We were all part of history that day. Watching two children assert their rights reminded us that fairness and accountability are the responsibility of the community, not just leaders." Meanwhile, the airline's board convened emergency meetings to ensure systemic reforms. Policies on staff bias, complaint verification, and child passenger protection were now non-negotiable, and a hotline was created for real-time reporting of discriminatory incidents. Lessons learned from Flight 312 were disseminated widely, becoming an emblematic case of youth empowerment meeting corporate accountability. Key. Back in their home city, Nia and Naomi often recounted the story not with fear, but with empowerment. They discussed the incident with friends emphasizing the lessons learned. Knowledge is power. Even at 12, calm composure can shift hostile situations. Documenting evidence ensures accountability. Community and adult support amplify fairness. Courage, when guided by principle, changes outcomes. The twins' story resonated far beyond the confines of the airplane. Social media users posted videos, essays, and commentaries analyzing the incident, highlighting how unchecked bias could be corrected through vigilance and intervention. Law schools, advocacy groups, and airline industry workshops referenced the event as a practical example of ethics, policy enforcement, and rights protection. Flight 312, initially just another hop from Atlanta to New York, became a landmark in corporate responsibility, child advocacy, and passenger empowerment. Veronica Miles's career ended as a cautionary tale, while Nia and Naomi emerged as symbols of resilience, awareness, and the impact of standing firmly for what is right. As the twins look back on the event months later, Nia reflected, "We didn't need to fight with anger. We had our knowledge, our calm, and our dad's guidance. That was enough," Naomi added, smiling. And the world watched. Sometimes justice is faster when everyone can see it happen. The passengers, the media, and the airline itself had all been witnesses to a moment where authority was held accountable, fairness triumphed, and two young girls' dignity remained intact. The story of Flight 312 became not just about seats or bias. It became a lesson in courage, vigilance, and the enduring power of standing up against discrimination. For those watching, listening, or learning, the message was clear. Bias can be challenged, injustice can be confronted, and even the smallest voices, when armed with knowledge and support, can create change that resonates far beyond a single moment in time. Flight 312 landed, history made, lessons etched into memory, and two young girls had proven that courage, dignity, and fairness could soar higher than any first-class cabin ever could.